Chaos, otherwise known as Sonic and Tails in Japan, is your follow-up to Sonic the Hedgehog 2 8-bit, because it's made by the same developers, that being Aspect. And there's not a whole lot of development on Sonic Chaos, or the fact that there's a different name change. So let's get into the actual game. The most notable thing about this game is you can play as Sonic and Tails. Yes, you can play as them in Sonic 2. However, Tails had no difference between Sonic. Now each of them are a different character, technically speaking. Sonic has a different moveset than Tails. For them, not really that much difference, but hey, it's something. Alright, so what is Sonic Chaos' story? Well, it's a short but sweet story. So South Island is back, the island from the first Sonic game, and Eggman is found when the Chaos Emeralds there, and all the Chaos Emeralds when they are out of whack. There's only 6 in this game, again, so no Supersonic. What happens then is that the island is going to sink back into the sea, and Eggman's trying to take over. So it's up to Sonic and his new buddy Tails to go back to South Island and save it from Eggman's menace. And of course, all that chaos thing and sinking in the sea is only in the manual because you don't see anything sink in the sea. In fact, I don't think there's really much of a water level in this game, to be honest. So, yeah, we don't see any cutscenes or anything relating to that actual story. I think that's just like something like, okay, we need to have something about chaos in here because we called it Sonic Chaos, even though this game is pretty basic and really not that chaotic at all. You'd think for a game called Sonic Chaos would be more chaos. Not that it really matters, as this game, of course, is known as Sonic and Tails in Japan. That's honestly a better name, if you ask me. Alright, so let's get into some of the gameplay. It is basically just an improvement on the gameplay we've seen in Sonic 2 8-bit, since it's made by the same developers. They copied and pasted. However, they tweaked it a little bit, so it's much smoother. The momentum, it's not as fast, but the platforming is a little better. Plus, we get new abilities. As you see, we can play as Tails, and Tails finally has his flight ability. Now, the CPU in Sonic 2 could fly, however, the player could not if they were playing as Tails. This is the first time you can play as him. It feels a little weird because you have to hold up an A, and it's kind of like he doesn't move based on momentum. So whatever. He also has a spin dash, which is the first 8-bit game to have a spin dash, and it's good to have that ability. And Sonic also has his Super Peel Out from Sonic CD, which is also a pretty nice move to have in place of Tails' flight ability. Though in this game it's not as useful as it is in Sonic CD, so you probably won't be using it as much. I didn't realize when I live streamed this back, I played the whole game as Tails. I don't know why I did this, but it's how I ended up. For the most part, there isn't much difference, other than the fact that at the end, you don't have to collect any of the Chaos Emeralds as Tails. You just get a good ending automatically, which is pretty nice if you ask me. So basically, if you're Sonic, you gotta go to the special stages, unlike the other Sonic 8-bit games where you didn't have to do that. Now you have to, as Tails, as Sonic, to get the Chaos Emeralds. Only 5 of the 6. If you beat Eggman, if you got all 5, he dropped the 6th one, and then you beat the game. Like I said, he had 1 emerald, so it makes sense, I guess. Even though there's 7 emeralds, and I guess this game kind of forgot about that. And Tails doesn't have to worry about that. He just gets a good ending automatically. So Tails is the easy mode of the game, basically. And much like in Sonic 2 8-bit, we have goalposts that give you little bonuses. However, they don't really mean anything on how to get them. They give you stuff, but they don't. From what I understand, there's nothing that gives you any specific things for actually getting them. Just random. So if you get a Sonic, you get extra life, or continue if you're playing as Tails. You get a ring. The ring one gives you 10 rings and 100 points. If you get Tails, you get extra life if you play as Tails, or continue as Sonic. If you get Flicky, you get nothing. Let's go over our new Badniks, as there's not that many of them. There's 2 returning Badniks, being the Buzz Bomber and Mecha Hyoko. It's only 2 returning ones. And only a couple of enemies. There's actually very few Badniks in this game. The first guy we got here is Boingobot. Say that 3 times fast. Boingobot, Boingobot, blah, blah, blah. And if you can tell, it's a Motobug with a spring on his back. I don't know why it's not called a Boing-Os Motobug or whatever, but whatever. Our next new enemy is a Bombelin, and they're basically the same as the bomb enemy. Just, not a bomb. It is a bomb, but it's not called bomb. But it kind of is, because bomb is in its title, but whatever. There is Frogger here, who's the little guy who likes to bounce around, and he's not to be confused with Froggy or the video game with the same name, Frogger. He also looks like he has a spring on his back, but he, hops around, so, yeah. There's a Metal O-Turtle. If you couldn't tell by the artwork, this is not a turtle, it's a rhinoceros beetle, so why do they call it a turtle? Despite the fact that this is a translation of the name, so they made up the name. They saw this enemy and said, turtle. Great job there, translators. But yeah, this guy just kind of charges at you, and that's about it. And the last Badnik, yes, there's this little Badnik, new Badniks in this game, and only 2 returning ones. So very small pool of enemies is called Vegobot. It's a vegetable, I guess. Great design, Eggman. A+ for making this Vegobot. The special stages are actually pretty interesting in this game. In order to get here, you have to play as Sonic, because like I said, if you don't, your Tails just has the easy mode. I don't know why they designed it that way, but whatever. And basically, you get a little mini game. Like I said, if you collect 100 rings, you immediately go here. The end level ends, and you just gotta collect a Chaos Emerald. But here, it's pretty basic. Sonic just flies through the sky and gets a Chaos Emerald. Though there is little differences in each one you do. And there's only 5, so it's really easy. The special stages are pretty basic, so there's really not much of a time limit here. And other than this 2 maze, they're unique. In fact, there's 5 unique ones. But at the same time, they're pretty easy and also really not worth it because, as you know, the good ending is automatically gotten by Tails, and it's also really not that unique of a difference in ending. We'll get to that when we get to it, but yeah, a lot of these games don't have that interesting ending levels anyway, so especially these don't really matter that much, but hey, you can play them. Alright, our first zone is Turquois Hill Zone, and if you couldn't tell from the title, it is your basic Green Hill Zone starting level. And here's a little spoiler about this game. This game is really easy and incredibly short. This is like a baby's first Sonic game. However, I don't recommend it being a first Sonic game because it's really not that interesting. Though if you want like a really basic one for like a little kid to play, this is the game to go. This game, literally, the only thing, other than the final boss, the whole entire game is super easy, and it took me 35 minutes to play it, and kind of blind because I play this game but I always forget about it. Unfortunately, Sonic Chaos, well, it's okay in short bursts. It's just so short that you kind of forget about the whole experience afterwards, even if it is kind of has a little bit of charm. And most of this stage isn't too great. One of the big problems is that if you're playing as Sonic, it's pretty easy to get 100 rings, and when you do, you immediately get out the level, which really isn't that fun. You kind of want to play it, because there is tons of rings you couldn't tell here from playing as Tails here. And there's not a whole lot. There is loop-de-loops, but not a whole lot to go for you in platforming. There's like, okay, there's some extra rings, which are of course getting to the special stages in the game. But other than that, it's not too interesting. There's not a lot of obstacles here either, since there's only 2 enemies, being the Boingo Bot and Buzz Bomber, who we barely saw any of it, and they kind of suck. Like the other 8-bit games, there's 3 acts, so the third act is pretty much just only a boss stage, and our boss here is Ladybug Boss, or just a big version of Boingo Bot with little treads, and if you couldn't tell, this guy is super easy. You can't jump at him, so you gotta roll at him, but yeah, it's one of the easiest boss fights, and when you beat him, Tails sparkles and flies away, or runs away, I guess. This level is Gigalopolis Zone, which is very giant, if you couldn't tell by the name. Just kidding, it's a very basic city level. There's only 2 enemies, the Buzz Bomber and the Metal O-Turtle, and this is a pretty basic level. You're just kind of running around this kind of a starry cityscape, and there's this weird platform that you fall off if you don't run it at the right speed. But you must look at the rest of this game. There's just a bunch of tubes and other things just to block you, and that's a Buzz Bomber. It's kind of weird. That's what the game says, is Buzz Bomber, even though it looks very odd. I'm surprised they didn't keep giving it a different name. Like, yeah, look, there's little secrets, of course. And it's kind of resembles Starlight Zone, but, you know, not really. And of course, this game has a problem of dropping 1 ring, but hey, at least you can collect it easy, unlike the other Sonic games. There is really not much to say about this level either. It's just a nice starry city zone that kind of resembles Starlight Zone, but not as fun because the momentum of the 8-bit games just aren't as fun or well thought out as the 16-bit counterpart. One of the good things about this game is that, unlike the other 8-bit Sonic games, you actually have rings to fight these bosses. That actually makes the boss fights a little more interesting. And we have our next boss fight, Bead Worm Boss, who looks like a caterpillar. He just shoots a bunch of balls at you. Keep your balls away from me, dude. And yeah, this boss would be pretty tricky if you didn't have rings, but since we do have rings, we can kind of easily defeat him. So yeah, it's actually could be a little tricky if you're a new time player, but because we have our ring source, we don't have to worry too much about this boss, do we? The next zone is Sleeping Egg Zone. And no, we won't be seeing any Eggman sleeping. It's just basically in the sky. It's kind of similar to the previous Sonic 2 8-bit zones. And I guess the reason why it's called Egg because Eggman put his face in some of the walls. This level is just kind of weird. Kind of like, it's pretty easy, but you think that, oh, there's supposed to be something here because I can break these blocks. But really, it's nothing. You can break a bunch of the level because, I don't know, I guess they thought it'd be fun. And if you couldn't tell, the 8-bit games like to call all their levels Egg this, Egg that. And a lot of weird old fans, like, he's never called Eggman, even though, like, a bunch of these levels and things are called Egg this, Egg that. They're just saying, that's why I call him Eggman. Everything in these games say that his name is egg-related, because there's the Death Egg, Egg Robo, the Eggmobile, Sleeping Egg, Scrambled Egg, Eggman literally name appears on the side of Wing Fortress Zone. So you're wondering why I call him Eggman, because I grew up after the classic era, and so I always call the character Eggman. I think Robotnik is not a bad name. I just think that's his original name, and I'm gonna keep calling him that. So sorry if you're a Robotnik fan. It's not a bad name, but at the same time, it's still as goofy as Eggman. So I don't really care. Anyway, there's only 2 enemies in this level, and if you couldn't tell by the playthrough of all these levels, there's like barely any enemies, and those being the Frogger and Vegetobot. They won't cause you much strife. Also, this could happen. I didn't remember this. Apparently, if you run past the signs, it can just stop and not do it all the way. So you're like, hey, flip over a sign, and that's all you really get from this level. The next zone is Mecha Green Hill Zone, which is actually one of the most unique concepts in the game. Basically, it's Green Hill from Sonic 1 got mechanized, because keep in mind, this is on South Island, the same island where Green Hill Zone is, and Eggman took over, which would have been an interesting concept, but since the rest of the game really doesn't have that much industrial feel, I know there's some, the rest of the game just feels like a generic Sonic stuff, so it doesn't really harken back to Sonic 1 that much, even if that's what they're trying to do. But yeah, it is a neat concept that, Mecha Green Hill Zone. Green Hill Zone looks more like Mecha Hill Zone right now. And yeah, even though this is not permanent because we know Green Hill Zone returns like every Sonic game in the future, so yeah, unfortunately for Eggman here, he doesn't concede in taking over Green Hill Zone. And if you couldn't tell, the zone is super easy because by the time I got done explaining the concept of Mecha Green Hill Zone, I've already beaten the level. Alright, let's get to the boss, and this is the Bouncy Boss Robot. Yes, it's literally called the Bouncy Bot Robot, and it bounces, and it's a boss, and it's a robot, so good name. Anyway, this guy isn't too difficult. I got in pretty basic pattern here, if you couldn't tell. I unfortunately lost some rings, but that's okay. But yeah, basically he just bounces, but even though it could be a little difficult for a new player, like I said, it's a pretty basic jumping pattern that he has, and if you get into flow, you can pretty much easily defeat this guy. It's a robot that looks like Eggman in his Eggmobile with a spring, and because it's actually pretty easy to recollect your ring in this game, none of the bosses are really any trouble, so this guy, like every other boss, was super easy. Anyway, this level has basically 2 enemies, the Boingabot and Coconut Bot, which for some reason doesn't have a page. I'm not sure if this even exists because it wasn't in the Sonic Chaos enemies listing, but according to the wiki, there's this Coconut Bot, and I don't see it in the level, so who knows if this thing even exists. Who knows a lot of things. I forgot to mention there is actually power-ups here, like, hey, look at this. Springs, shoes, and this stuff isn't really that interesting because, well, they're better than the dumb paraglider in Sonic 2 8-bit. They're not that useful. The rocket shoes, okay, they're kind of neat, but only Sonic can really use them, and the boings, just those shoes, whatever you call them, just makes them bounce up. That's why I haven't really mentioned them, because the levels are already easy, and they don't really give you much incentive to use them. You can tell how easy this game is. Look how many continues I have, like, holy crap. Anyway, let's see what the boss fight at Green Hill Zone. I wonder if it's something interesting. And what is it? What is it? Well, we'll see when Tails gets there in a second. And the boss fight is known as Tree Crawler Boss. It is a sloth, if you couldn't tell. And for some reason, I stopped my footage here to have a mouse there. Isn't that lovely? And basically, you just gotta bounce on top of his head. And yeah, he'll shoot bullets at you, and you just bounce back. I wish I didn't put my mouse around the screen when I was live streaming this. I guess I was a doofus. But overall, if you couldn't tell by the footage here, this guy is pretty easy, so let's move on. The next zone is Aqua Planet Zone, and this is one of the weirdest zones because you couldn't tell. Aqua Planet, I thought we were on an island. We are a new planet? Well, yeah. For some reason, the description of this zone is Aqua Planet Zone is a water planet located in another dimension. How are we even in here? I don't remember anything. There's a nice bouncing thing, but like, what is going on here? That's just the weirdest description ever because if you didn't know, you're apparently in another dimension. There's like nothing that tells you that, and I guess that's the chaos element. I think that was just added in the American script, like, we gotta have a chaos, another dimension. Yes, that's one of those things, and yeah, we get sucked into water. It's a basic water level. If you couldn't tell, instead of getting air bubbles, you just jump up for air, and yeah, because even though water levels can be torturous in Sonic zones, because this level is so basic, it's not difficult at all. Or in fact, there's the spears again. And we do have slowdown, but other than that, this level isn't really worth noting. There's also, other than spears, we have one enemy being a Mecha Hoiko. Hope I'm saying that right. They didn't translate that name, unlike the other enemies, but whatever. And if you can tell, this level is really interesting. And we're just kind of water, and then, I'm above it. And I guess I'm on a different planet, too. I doubt this was the original intention when making this level, as being a different planet, but hey, that's what the people wanted to go for. Despite being a water level, there actually isn't that much water in the level, other than in Act 1. Act 2 and 3 don't really have any water. In fact, the boss fight is just above the ruins, which is You know, not too bad. And we got our new boss fight, who sends out our little Mecha that's a fun thing to say. They come jumping out, and then you gotta wait. You gotta beat them like they did in Sonic 2 8-bit for that boss fight. And then here's the guy. It's Spirobot boss, because everything has to have a boss. And it's this weird bird egg thing. I guess it makes sense. Eggman bird. And like every enemy, it likes to bounce around. I don't know what's the bouncing in this game. It could have called Sonic Bounce Game. That's terrible. And if you couldn't tell, it's pretty easy to beat. And it shoots out missiles, so you gotta watch out for that. And yeah, there's more of the same thing for Sonic 2 8-bit. They kind of retraced that, and I guess I didn't have rings, so I died there. So if you don't suck, you just hit it after it shoots missiles, and basically that's all it takes to defeat this lovely boss fight and go on to the next zone. Nothing too dangerous here, because you do have rings. I was just being a dum-dum. The next zone is Electric Egg Zone, the final zone. This zone is your basic final zone in a Sonic game. With, the industrial Eggman theme. We got our pipes, like always. They love pipes in these 8-bit games. I don't know why. But it just retreads a lot of stuff with your conveyor belts. The lasers that shoot at you, and you'll get killed if you suck, like I did. This is the first tricky zone in the game, because there's a lot of different obstacles that can get in your way. The bomblins, the buzz bombers, the lasers, falling blocks. There's a lot more obstacles to dodge here than in previous zones, and slow down if you get hit by certain things. And of course we got annoying springs and pipes that take you different locations. You gotta make sure you're going the right way, or you fall down or die, and all this other stuff. And it also has one of the most annoying boss fights in the entire Sonic game franchise. And here he is, Eggman and the Laser Walker. It's a chicken walker that shoots a laser beam, and the laser beams shoot everywhere. Eggman takes a lot of hits in this boss fight, and it's actually hard to pick up rings in this boss because those lasers come out constantly. The pattern seems a lot easier than it actually is, because he just shoots out so many different lasers and they bounce in a really erratic pattern. Plus, if you're behind him, he'll shoot the weird ones that bounce all over the place, and in front of you, he'll shoot like one big blast and get pretty annoying to hit him. It looks easier than it is because you'll just die and have to restart. And yeah, this guy has always been very tricky, and I just don't know why. It looks easier than it actually is, but this guy is just pretty difficult. But if you get the pattern down and you just avoid the bullets, try to get as much hits on him as possible before he shoots more and more bullets, maybe you can defeat him and beat the game. Anyway, eventually, if you're good at the game, unlike me, you'll beat Eggman and he'll fly away. It is weird how difficult this boss is compared to the rest of the game, and he'll be like, haha, I got a new thing for you, Tails. Try to beat me here, and I guess he did beat me because I died. Anyway, what you're supposed to do is avoid him, and once he is on your level, you just hit on top of him, like that. And he cries and whimpers, like, oh no, I lost again! And he's, once again, faster than you, no matter what you do. Look at him, how is he that fast? He'll go on a platform, chuckles like a little duckle, and that's the end of the game. He'll drop a Chaos Emerald if you're playing as Sonic, and you got all the other Chaos Emeralds, and that's it. Tails just runs away, and that's the whole game. If you're playing as Sonic and didn't get all the Chaos Emeralds, we'll get this little baby cutscene where he's chasing after Eggman. It's like, haha, you can't get me, Sonic. I got this Chaos Emerald still. And yeah, he trips and he gets Sonic cries. Wah wah. Yeah, that's all what happens if you didn't get all the Chaos Emeralds. I mean, yeah, nothing too big, but whatever. Sonic Chaos is a game that you can get on the Game Gear, and it is a pretty cheap game. Even complete, it's only $32. Loose price, $10. It's actually cheaper in Japan, where it's only $5, and $10 as well as Europe, depending on the copy you want. If you want to play the game as Sonic and Tails, exact same game but different title, then it's $5 cheaper. Overall, not a very rare, elusive Game Gear game here, so if you want Sonic Chaos, there you go. Also, this game, we call it Sonic Chaos, but technically it's called Sonic the Hedgehog Chaos, because back in the day, everything was called Sonic the Hedgehog. Before everything, they decided to shorten everything to Sonic, because, it's a lot easier to say. If you want to play this game, the more superior version on the Master System, you can only play it on PAL region in Brazil, and it's actually not that expensive compared to other versions of the Master System game. This was the last one released in Europe for the Master System, so keep that in mind. This is the last Sonic game you can get for that console, but hey, it's only $25 loose and $31 complete. So overall, not too bad if if you're a Master System fan. I don't have any Master System stuff, so maybe I'll get one day, but I have to import this stuff, so maybe not. As mentioned before in my other Game Gear videos, Sonic Adventure DX has all the Game Gear games, but you gotta lock them for the emblems. But if you like Sonic Adventure like I do, you already have like 3 complete save files on this 100%. It's really not that too much, but every like 50 emblem is a Game Gear game, I believe. Not that really matters. It's not the most ideal way to play it, but if you like Sonic Adventure, well, here's a way to unlock all the Game Gear games, including Sonic Chaos. And once again, the game was released on the Wii Virtual Console, the Master System version, which is pretty nice, and only released this way. So yeah, not a whole lot of re-releases for Sonic Chaos. However, there's another re-release, which is probably the most basic way to play the game, at least in modern day, and that is Sonic Origins Plus. Only the Plus version has every Game Gear game like Sonic Adventure DX, and it's on modern consoles, so it's probably the best way to play those. But unfortunately, it's only the Game Gear version, so yeah, though it is pretty easy to emulate if you really go on that route. But overall, this is probably the best way to play a lot of the classic Sonic games. I wish I had Knuckles Chaotix on it, but it doesn't.
Things were fast. It was cool. Over the years, that chaos would take many forms. But one thing it's never become is portable. Introducing new Sonic Chaos for Game Gear. Chaos with rocket shoes. Chaos with pogo springs. Chaos with Sonic or Tails. Chaos improved. New Sonic Chaos only on Sega Game Gear. Sega!
Alright, so I had to fix this tier list. I was like recording this, like, hey, this tier list is not right. So I fixed it a little bit. I went back to play a little bit of different games and changed my opinions on certain things while I was in the middle doing Sonic Chaos. Overall, Sonic Chaos is a C tier game, pretty low tier. Pretty forgettable game, honestly, which is disappointing because it has some interesting ideas. But overall, it does some things in the Sonic universe, like at the first time Tails can fly, super peel out, a bit better, power-ups than Sonic 2 8-bit, but overall, it's just not that much of an upgrade. It is not terrible like Sonic 2 on 8-bit, but overall, Sonic Chaos is one of the forgettable games. Though, but fortunately for us, the Aspect does a much better job in their sequel to the game, Sonic Triple Trouble. Two things that have changed here is Sonic CDs in B tier. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of some of the elements, I think it doesn't really belong in C tier. It definitely is more of a B tier game just because of certain elements of the game. Plus, C tiers can be a little crowded. And I replayed Flicky, and it might be a B tier game, but overall, because I did a lot better next time, I actually was able to get pretty far in the game. It's pretty fun, but overall pretty basic, so it is the top of C tier. Maybe it'll be a B tier. Who knows? And that's about it for the rest of these games. I have nothing else to say, so thank you very much, and see you on the next Sonic game.